Morena, everybody. We're slightly stunned, amazed and pleased to see how popular mushrooms are in Featherston. Absolutely thrilled to be here. And isn't Featherston Booktown just amazing? Yeah. Woo! Give it up. Featherston punches above its weight in many respects. It's a great town. So mushrooms, hey? Mushrooms are having something of a renaissance in the public consciousness. From Merlin Sheldrake's popular and phenomenal book, Entangled Life, to the Netflix documentary, Fantastic Fungi, which various friends have told me they watch repeatedly with the sound turned off, just to enjoy the incredible sped-up footage of mushrooms unfurling and exploding, to the new popularisation of medicinal mushrooms that we're all stirring into our morning coffees or swallowing in capsules, to the sheer proliferation of mushroom motifs on clothing and in popular culture. And it would not be an exaggeration to say that Liv Sisson's mushroom foraging guide has gone viral, or maybe mycelial, consistently appearing in the bestseller lists since its publication in 2023. And this year, very exciting, nominated for an Ockham New Zealand Book Award. Yes. The book's distinctive black and blue cover has become the must-have accessory for New Zealand nature lovers everywhere. And with all this excitement about mushrooms, passionate conversations are happening about what people are calling the psychedelic revival of the last decade or so. The use of psychedelics in therapeutic contexts is very much on the rise. And Zach's book, Blue Honey, has gathered voices from across New Zealand who bear witness to the healing powers of psychedelic mushrooms. And today, we're privileged to have these two mushroom enthusiasts to share with us some of what they love about our fungi friends. Liv Sisson is a forager and fungi enthusiast who has been enchanted by the minutiae of nature for as long as she can remember. Liv was raised in Virginia, USA, and first learned about how to spot small wonders in the Blue Ridge Mountains. She studied geology and art before moving to New Zealand, and Liv recently moved from Christchurch to Auckland to take a role as commercial editor of the spin-off. Liv has spent countless hours exploring Aotearoa with a curious eye for the flora, fauna and fungi that define this special place. Her writing appears in the spin-off, Cuisine and Stuff. She is featured on Radio New Zealand, and she loves to share her love of mushrooms with people on foraging walks. Zach Cotogni has been on a personal healing journey, which means he is now totally free of his drug and drink addictions. After having a problem with alcohol, Zach has not drunk alcohol for 7 years. Zach is thrilled that his book, Blue Honey, a collection of stories from across Aotearoa about personal experiences of using psilocybin or magic mushrooms for mental health, has had an impact on other people's lives. And he's very proud of his two beautiful children who are in the audience today. Welcome to Featherston Booktown, Liv and Zach.
Thanks for having us.
So there's a bit of a blue theme going on. Liv, on your your beautiful book cover with the were kōkako, our very distinctive native mushroom that's also on our $50 note. And I noticed sometimes you dress in the theme of your book in black and blue.
Got blue nail polish on today.
She's got beautiful manicure. Is the were kōkako your favourite mushroom, would you say?
Yeah, I don't know if it's my favorite, but I had been wanting to see it for a long, long time. And I had been searching, but not trying too hard, because I feel if you're looking really specifically for something, you often won't see it. So I was passively looking for it for about 3-4 years maybe. And then I finally saw it on the West Coast. And so it's a very memorable find. It's actually popped up in my dreams many times since then.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very magical.
Oh, that's beautiful. Can I press you for a favourite or favourites?
Oh, I think top of mind personal favorite is tutai kehua, our white basket fungi, because it's just such a strange shape. And I thought it must be deep in the bush somewhere, but I actually finally saw it at the Auckland airport outside.
The Auckland Airport. What are the odds? That's so amazing. And for the uninitiated, Zach, can you explain the title of your book, Blue Honey?
Yeah, so Liv and I didn't plan this blue thing, but blue honey was sort of an inside term for psychonauts who like to store their mushrooms in honey, and over time it turns blue, given the term blue honey. Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. And tell us about bluing with psychedelic mushrooms.
Yeah, so one of the ways you can determine whether or not you've come across a psychedelic mushroom is by pinching the stem, and it will give off a bluing tinge. Definitely not something to always go by. It's just one of the common themes.
Another clue.
One of the clues, yes.
Yeah, that's
but
brilliant.
not a clue to have 100% as a...
It's not the clue to end all
It's
clues.
not the clue to end all
It
clues.
is, one of many clues. Yeah. So I think part of the reason Liv's book has gone gangbusters is that you've got this wonderful, friendly style in your book, Liv. I mean, let's be honest, sometimes guidebooks can run a little dry. Am I right? I mean, that's kind of, what you pick up a guidebook for, you sort of want the facts. But Liv delivers the facts in spades. And as well as that, if you haven't read her book, it's wonderfully conversational and friendly, and also a lot of New Zealand history in the book. How did you strike on that sort of tone for something that's essentially a factual guidebook? Because it's pretty unique, and I think it's wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think for me, I studied geology and art, so I never actually studied mycology. I think a lot of people that I've come across in the last year think that mushrooms are my full-time job, but they're actually not. And I do really love them, but I'm not a trained expert, so I was bringing a very, very enthused amateur lens to the topic, and that actually made it very hard to write because it meant I didn't want to be the expert, and I also wasn't the expert, so I needed to go out to the experts and learn from them and do lots of research. But because I wasn't an expert, it gave me this space to play and be a bit playful and friendly, and I didn't always have to be so cut and dry, I suppose. So it was kind of finding a way to be a curious guide to the topic was essentially explaining it the way I would want it explained to me, and that opened up a really fun space. But my first draft, I hadn't figured that out yet, so it was a total bomb.
Your first draft was a bomb?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, okay. So how did you change it up for draft 2?
I made it a lot more friendly. I think I had gotten stuck in a very, scientific, has to be quite sort of in a box type of writing, and it didn't really fit me, but I got on the wrong track, and then I just doubled down and I stayed there. And then the first draft was bad. Wait, what was your question?
No, I thank you so much for sharing that, Liv. I think it's so important for writers to share those parts of the process, just as encouragement.
Oh, I know what
to
it
others.
was. My publisher said to me, you need to have an identity on when you're writing this book. And she said, you are the curious guide. And so then once I had that identity, that hat to put on, then I could get to the good stuff.
Excellent.
Because I didn't have to be the expert. I just had to be the curious guide.
And it's a great subtitle to it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's marvellous. So, Zach, you're coming at mushrooms from a totally different angle from Liv. I mean, there's a lot in common between the two of you. But talk to us a little bit about how you came to write Blue Honey or edit Blue Honey and some of your experiences in the mushroom world.
So the mushrooms I'm talking about are specifically the psilocybin mushrooms, the ones that will give you a psychedelic trip. I discovered them 8 years ago in Canada, and essentially when I first started taking them, it was recreational, and very quickly it turned medicinal, and had some very heavy experiences whilst being on them. I think one of the first biggest ones when I came out of the trip was that I realised I would never drink alcohol again. It came at a really good time because not long prior I'd actually been given an ultimatum by my partner. I needed to quit drinking. And at that point I did think I was going to lose her. I had no idea how I was going to navigate this. And the experience in the trip was essentially unlocking every single memory of me being drunk and the things I'd said and done to people. So that was heavy and hard to sit through. But I knew that I would never touch alcohol again. I couldn't say that to Teresa at the time because she had heard that before. Only time could really prove that, and here we are 8 years later. And then after sort of the change, after the change that they had in me, I had sort of the drinking and the drugs issue. My sister had had different problems in her life, mental health issues, and we just decided to try them on with her and see what happens. And instantly there was such a change with her that about a year after we wondered there have to be more people that have gone through this, and we can't be the only ones, and we don't want to keep this a secret, so how can we let the world know that a Class A drug is good for you?
You just seem like such a calm, settled, loving family man from, the sort of week and a half I've known you, but you do seem very calm and very together. So can you just give us a little hint of who you were before? Because at the moment it's sort of hard to imagine a darker you. What were you like before?
I was an addict, and the heavy use of drugs brought on a lot of psychosis and paranoia and anxiety, and I was just living in alternate realities, and the alcohol abuse brought all of that sort of noise to a quiet, to a hush, but then I wouldn't be able to stop drinking, and then something would come forward and I'd just be this angry, lost, scared, insecure being fueled with alcohol released onto the streets. It was not pleasant. But I do believe that when I wasn't drinking, I was a cool, calm, collective, good person. It was just when I drank, and unfortunately I drank often.
So it sort of unleashed demons, metaphorical demons in you.
Yeah,
sort of.
Issues that I hadn't dealt with that I would then project onto friends, family, and strangers.
Yeah. So a lot of the accounts in the book, people they use the word reset a lot. Reset,
yes.
Like taking the psilocybin. And many of them also had addiction issues, alcohol, some even methamphetamine.
Yeah.
And they talk about how the psilocybin reset their brain, and they were instantly, it seems, able to give up these things that they were very addicted to.
10 years of therapy in a single dose.
Yeah, 10 years of therapy in a single dose. To people that have never tried psilocybin, that seems, kind of miraculous, unlikely, bizarre. So can you talk to us a little bit about that brain reset experience? What do they mean, or what do you mean when you say reset?
I mean, it's different for everybody. The reset is just sort of the common word, but I mean, what's happening inside your brain as the psilocybin is recreating neurological pathways inside your brain. So I guess that's the reset. Everyone's going to experience a kind of a baseline similar.
Yeah.
Everyone will have a similar baseline experience, but when you go deep into it, it's all going to be personal for you, interpersonal for the individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what were some of your own experiences like?
So recreationally, it was fun. Recreationally with a few people, it's a euphoric feeling. There are visuals that happen. You just feel happy. I often would say in the beginning that I feel like a mushroom. I don't know why, but I guess that's what mushrooms feel like when they pop out of the ground. When they started, the mushrooms kind of started telling me I can't keep doing this with people. I need to start doing this on my own, and that's when you truly experience the magic of psilocybin.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds
when you
amazing.
sit with yourself.
Yeah.
In the experience.
In an interview I heard with you, you said that you had one trip which another person might describe as a bad trip, but you chose not to see it that way and you wanted to reframe it as confronting, and you felt that what you were confronted with was actually useful and therapeutic to you. Can you
Yes.
just talk to us about that, what happened in that situation?
So that was in one of the early beginning ones where I had the movie reels playing in my head, just all the memories come back of all the times I had been hurtful to other people while I've been drinking, all my memories that had been blacked out. So that's it was an uncomfortable experience. I don't like bad trip because the trip that you're having or the experience that you're having is relevant to you for some reason, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable. The uncomfortable ones are more often the healing ones.
Well, yeah, it's quite amazing to think of, isn't it? That it's almost like a personal prescription for what you need at that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, Liv, you and I did a couple of events last year together at Dunedin Writers Festival, and they were enormous fun. I remember on our second event when we had audience questions and somebody asked you about your own experiences with magical mushrooms, and you sort of demurred to answer in a very graceful way. But given it's the topic of our whole panel today, I thought I'd be a cheeky monkey and see if I can press you to say anything further.
Yes, totally. And Zach, thank you for sharing your experience. That was really powerful to hear. And I can see the really adoring looks in your family's eyes, and just a really powerful story to hear. So thanks for sharing. And for writing this book. I really encourage everyone to check it out. The accounts are very real and tender and I think illuminating.
There's one point I'd like to make. My sister actually helped me put this book together as well. And I think the reason that this book has been as popular as it has been, in the back she's released a QR code which has 10 years of her medical history in it, so she's not hiding from anything. All of her doctor visits, hospital visits, psychiatric visits, drugs that she was taking, the dosages that she was on, it's all for you to view and go through, and you can see that from when she started taking mushrooms, all of those doctor visits, hospital visits stopped, and she is now off all prescriptions.
It's really courageous transparency.
That's 10 years of medical history in there.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Yes, but yeah, in terms of my own experiences, I do remember that question, Helen, and it's really powerful to have a session framed up in this way because it doesn't happen all the time, and this conversation doesn't always come up naturally. But I think for me, I have had some really fun recreational experiences, and I think for me, that's been really powerful in my thinking. I think for me, I often have very unmovable ruminative thoughts that are really hard to move through. They're quite sticky, and that can lead to kind of like a lot of anxiety and depression for me. And so for me, I've really used it as a tool with some of my best mates who are actually in the audience to have some incredibly fun and super silly days, which I think I'm naturally quite a serious person. And so for me, it's allowed me and empowered me to bring out a more fun, easygoing side of myself that's a lot more comfortable for me to live in. And when I was writing, it was a really personally challenging time for me, just things going on with my family and in my life. And I wrote that first draft, and it was a total bomb, as I alluded to before. And I was in the US at that point. The border had just opened post-COVID, so I went back to see my family, and it was a really traumatic experience trying to reconnect after so long apart, and just was a very personal low. And then I got that feedback from my publisher that I had done a pretty horrific job on the first draft, and I got that news. I was like sitting in a strip mall in Virginia, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is worst case scenario. And so it was just a really personally challenging time, and I kind of had this moment where I was like, wow, this is a huge mountain I have to climb right now, and I'm at a personal low. And I went with my partner up to New York for a weekend, and we just decided we were going to have the best time ever, and we went to this gig in New York, and we got 50,000 steps and just had an absolute ball with this delicious bar of chocolate. I have no idea if this was on the record, by the way. And that experience, it was a personal low, but even in the moment, I could feel myself working through some really tight knots in my mind. And I wasn't sitting alone with myself, which I am very keen to try, but I'm also a bit afraid. But maybe
But
I
you were
think
with
I
your
will.
partner.
I was with my partner. I was with 30,000 other people at this gig
true.
in Brooklyn, which I would not recommend that setting if you're new to psychedelics. You should have a much more chill setting than that. That's not entry level. And but I just had the best night, and I think that for me, having a lot of fun is very medicinal. Just having so much fun with people that I love is really powerful for me and gives me a halo for multiple months to come of just feeling I have a bit more ease and my thoughts are more easily moved along when they're not helpful. And that one night gave me the energy and the glow to actually do that second draft whilst being completely unsettled, traveling around the US, trying to work on these very tricky relationships. And so yeah, for me, I think it's been a tool of extreme and amazing fun. Yeah.
Well, that's a wonderful story, actually. So the mushrooms kind of informed the second draft.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it was obviously a great gift from them because
Totally.
it's done really well. And
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, mushrooms. But joking aside, they are illegal in New Zealand, aren't they? They're a Class A drug.
They're in the same category as meth and heroin.
Same category as meth and heroin, which is really interesting, isn't it? We've got this highly synthetic, highly damaging drug, methamphetamine, which is, raging through our communities and doing so much damage. And it's on the same level as this, grown in nature, one would argue medicine, which is having these incredible positive effects. So it seems like something's very wrong there. And I know, Zach, publicly you've spoken about how you've had to give this gift of blue honey to the world, you've had to give up mushrooms because you're so in the spotlight around it.
I can't have my front door kicked in and raided.
Yeah, that's right.
for with the family.
So that's an
I'm
incredible
in the spotlight.
gift. Yeah, it's an incredible gift you've given everyone, and it must be very difficult. And I know Michaela, your sister's had to actually move to the northern hemisphere so she can carry on her therapy with psilocybin. So would you like to just speak to that a little bit, why you would like to see the drug decriminalised at least, if not legalised?
Well, even if you just look at the definition of a Class A drug, you would find that cigarettes and alcohol should be in there as well, just for a start. I would like to see them decriminalised. I don't want to be viewed as a criminal for exploring my own consciousness in the privacy of my own home. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm bettering myself as a human being. So yeah, I would definitely love to see them at least decriminalised or in a lower class. Even though they are a Class A, what I have sort of seen is that it's not high on any of the law's agenda to go looking for. I mean, there are Facebook pages dedicated to growing these and how to safely identify these, and they're not shut down. And I can assure you, if there was a page on how to grow or make meth, or how to safely identify good meth, that Facebook page would not be allowed to stay up there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just pivoting a little from the topic of Zach's book back to Liv's book. Liv, I really enjoyed, I love your whole book, but I particularly enjoyed the edible mushroom chapter. As you know, I'm a keen forager myself and love to mess around in the kitchen with foraged items. In your chapter there, where you get to the bit where you suggest what people can do with the mushrooms they forage, the descriptions of recipes to try and food pairings were so wonderfully detailed, and I know you're something of a foodie, aren't you? So I would love you to tell us a little bit about, obviously a lot of work and play went on in your kitchen, so would you like to just talk to us about that work and play that you did with your forage finds?
Yeah, it's interesting you use the word play, Helen. Also, everyone should check out Helen's book, A Forager's Life. It's completely fantastic and one of my favorite books on my shelf that I actually keep on my desk because I refer to it so frequently. It's just, please check it out. But, play, yes. So, yeah, I think those recipes that you mentioned were all just experiments I had done on my own time or tried in my own kitchen. And I think, as I mentioned before, I haven't studied fungi. It's not my full-time job. And so on reflecting on this journey, I'm like, how did I get here? But I think for me, the learning about fungi really was play. And it was just fun and exciting for me to go on walks and learn about new things and then research online and go to the library. And I think for me, as someone who struggles to relax, that learning about fungi was really a form of play for me. And it resulted in this book, which I never could have foreseen. But those recipes are heaps of fun, and things like puffball parmigiana sandwiches and toaka brown butter pasta. And yeah, those were just little tidbits that came up along the way that I had experimented with.
Yes, if you're at all a foodie, you have to buy Liv's book for those bits alone. I mean, I tend to be, with a mushroom, I'm sort of like garlic butter, that's all you need. What else can you do? But Liv has got some really beautiful descriptions of things to try and pairings with cheese, really specific.
Yes.
Just the detail is quite beautiful. So, Zach, I saw on the back of your book that Dr. Gabor Mate endorsed the book for you or gave you advance praise. Now, for those of you that don't know, Dr. Gabor Mate is an internationally renowned therapist and psychedelic advocate, really high level and quite fancy. So tell us about how you managed to, how this wee self-published book in the bottom of the world, how you managed to capture his attention.
That was through a friend of my wife and I, who we met in South America, who ended up going to a course, who knew a lady who was friends with him.
It's sort of like 7 degrees to Kevin Bacon, isn't it?
And so I was able to get a hold of his email address really easily.
That simple. You emailed him?
And emailed him the book and said, will you endorse this? And he got back within about 3 days.
Okay.
With what he wrote on the back.
Amazing. I was kind of hoping there was a more interesting story than
No,
that.
sorry.
Thank you for answering anyway.
Be a story of don't ask, don't get.
Yeah, be bold.
Love it.
Now, both of your books have very strong visual elements. Liv's is full of stunning macro
Beautiful
photography.
photos.
Yeah. And Blue Honey features art by a selection of artists depicting their experiences with psychedelic mushrooms. Do you want to tell us a bit about the visual elements of your books?
After you.
Okay, yes. So the photographs in my book mostly come from Paula Vigas, who's a fantastic photographer based here on the North Island. And I think my favorite kind of fun fact about the imagery is the photos are focus stacked. So if there's any photographers in the room, when you zoom right in on something very small, you can only focus on a very tiny portion of it. So it's very hard to get a mushroom that's only this big completely in focus and in very high detail. So Paula sets up a tripod and takes hundreds of images of the one mushroom, focusing on a different part as she moves the camera around, and then she actually layers those images together. So this image on the cover would actually probably be about 200 to 300 images composited together. So each photo is a little work of art that Paula has spent years honing her craft and getting her kit all set up and looking for these organisms. And she's completely self-taught. So
It actually took me a long time to realize it was a photograph on the cover because it's so stunning. I just assumed it was an artwork.
yeah, it is. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And there's some really average photos that I took in there too.
Very charming, though. They're charming. Zach, how about you?
Well, we knew we wanted a visual element just to break up each story, so we reached out on Facebook to and Facebook groups to mushroom communities. If there's any artists out there who would like to submit something based on an experience, based on a feeling, based on anything really that had a psychedelic feeling to it.
I noticed quite a few of them have snails in them. What do you think it is about mushrooms and snails?
I don't know. I'm not sure on that one. Although there's a lot of slugs in Aotearoas often, which they say that the slugs give you the psychedelic experience because they've eaten all the psilocybin, so you have to eat the slugs. So.
Wow, yeah.
But I'm not. I have noticed that as well, that there are a lot of snails in a lot of the artwork, and I'm not sure
what that connection is.
what that connection,
Maybe it's something
where it
about
comes
slowing
from.
down or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we should probably talk a little bit about foraging. I mean, there's something the three of us have in common. And I know you can't talk to where to find mushrooms, Zach, because that wouldn't be appropriate. But yeah, let's talk foraging.
Yeah. Well, I guess for me on the edible mushroom front, when I wrote the book, I was living in Christchurch. I lived there for almost 6 years, and we have the red zone there, which is the area of the city that was the most damaged in the earthquakes. So there's quite a lot of foraging in there, right in the city. And I think for me, what was really fun was learning about tree fungi associations. And as I was learning more about fungi, I was learning more about trees, and I was honing my tree identification skills, my fungi identification skills. And I think oftentimes people feel like they need to go far and wide to forage, but you can really just forage in your neighborhood, and there's something quite special about seeing how plants and fungi change throughout the year. You don't have to go far.
That's right. And what about you, Zach? Do you have any interest in foraging outside of psychedelics?
So I do, however, I'm not very good at it. And I think foraging in general should be taught back into schools. And it caught me out the other day. I had the big realization. My son went to go pick up something and put it in his mouth. And I said, stop, don't eat that. And he looked at me and asked why. And all I could come up with is because it might be poisonous, because I don't know. And I've just taught him that things on the ground, foods on the ground, could be poisonous, and it's just going to, pass the cycle down to the next generation. So I think foraging is really important for everybody to learn, and yeah, we definitely need it back in schools. This book should be in schools. Your
Hopefully
book should
is.
be in schools,
Yeah.
and it should be a subject so that we don't pass down the fear to the next generation of don't eat that. It
Good to
might
be cautious,
poisonous.
though.
It is good
Yeah.
to be cautious, but I wish I had known exactly what it was. So not to install it may be poisonous, but if I had known, I could be like, no, you can't eat this one because, and here are reasonings why, as opposed to now, I feel like the next time he's walking in the bush and he sees something that looks like a lolly, he's just going to think it might be poisonous.
Liv, what was it like getting to know a new country through a foraging lens?
Oh, it was fantastic. I think it was such a special experience I had moving here in my early 20s and walking through the Ngahere and just being totally transfixed and mesmerized by all of the moss and lichen and trees, and it all just looks so different to the forests I grew up in. So I couldn't really presuppose, which actually has some major psychedelic parallels. I couldn't really walk through the forest here and have a sense of, I already know what's in here. I don't really need to look. I was actually experiencing everything in real time, which is one of the major benefits of psychedelics, is removing that lens that we walk through the world with, where we, don't stop to smell a flower because we already know what it smells like, which you may not even realize that you do it. It happens at a deep subconscious level. So I got this amazing experience to be, 22, 23, but feel like I was 5 years old.
How beautiful.
Yeah.
And your afterward in the book talks about wonder. So tell us about wonder and your take on wonder and how the book enhanced that for you.
I think what was interesting about the book is when I started writing, I had already been researching and on this fungi learning journey for about 5 years. So I actually wrote the book in just a year, which I would not recommend ever. But it was kind of the culmination of that learning journey. And wait, can you remind me of the question?
Wonder,
yes. I was saying to Helen and Zach recently, I learned that you actually listen and formulate answers with the same part of your brain. So you actually need to listen to the full question. As you see, I did not do there. So wonder and awe, yeah. I think as I wrote the fungi book, it was actually way more personal than I expected, that writing process, and trying to understand, how did I get to this point? Why am I so interested in this topic? And it's really from a lifetime of experiencing wonder and awe outside, and oftentimes even just in my own yard or my neighborhood, not huge experiences on a 10-day tramp where I'm summiting the highest mountain in the country, but actually these little micro adventures that are super accessible and part of my everyday just give me these moments of discovering something I wasn't expecting, and that brings a lot of joy and wonder and awe to my life. And I think through writing the book, I realized that was really what I loved most about it and what the biggest benefit of it was to me. Yeah.
Beautiful. And if anyone's following Liv on Instagram, she's just moved to Auckland, and I see you chasing rainbows up there.
Yes, there are so many rainbows in Auckland. Why is no one talking about this? And through some very minimal Google research, there's like next to no research on rainbows in New Zealand.
Could that be Liv's second book?
I don't know. I'm keeping a tally at my desk. I've had an 8-day streak of seeing a rainbow just from my desk.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
How is Michaela now, Zach?
Really, really, really good. She's moved to Canada in search of psychedelic-assisted therapy because it's not legal here. However, it was really, really expensive. So she's not been able to do that. However, she's not disappointed by that because she's still continuing her healing journey by being out in the world on her own, figuring it out, and still having mushrooms at her side. So she's working, got her first ever job over there, and left home for the first time at 27. Wow. And a year prior to that, that would never have been conceivable to any of us, really. Yeah.
That's wonderful news. So glad to hear it.
Thank you.
Now, Liv, you've sort of got the tag as the mushroom lady, and you can see why. But you're actually really interested in food resilience as a whole, aren't you? As well as being a foodie, you're interested in the politics of the food space. So talk to us a little bit about that passion in the food resilience space, and also as your experience as an Eat New Zealand kaitaki.
Yes. Yeah, so for anyone who hasn't heard of it, Eat New Zealand is a nonprofit kai organization that connects different parts of our food system here in Aotearoa. And I think I was reflecting on this the other day. How did I get interested in food sovereignty and security and the resilience of our food system? And it's actually very similar to my fungi journey. I think I arrived here and I went into Pack and Save and I went into New World, and I was shocked by the prices and shocked by the limited range and kind of just said, what's going on here? What's happening here? We produce so much food here. Why is it so expensive? Why do we have such crazy high grocery prices? And it was just a matter of being really curious and wanting to understand, why is this current situation the way that it is?
So the food here is markedly different to the food in the States?
In some ways, yeah.
Yeah, in what ways?
Less choice, less competition. At home, I can go to 10 different grocery stores within 10 minutes. So there's just a lot more competition in the sector, and there's a lot more range, higher quality, more choice. So I'm speaking just specifically to the supermarket sector right now, but I am interested in the whole of the system. And I just, wanted to understand, we produce enough food to feed 40 million, yet 1 in 5 tamariki are food insecure, which is absolutely shocking. So I'm, interested in shining a light on that through my food writing at the spin-off, and kind of poking the bear every now and again with some of my writing. And I've had some really fun guerrilla gardens in Christchurch. I grew quinoa on an empty parking lot, which was heaps of fun. So I've just always, loved gardening and growing kai, eating kai, getting to know food producers. And we just have such a bountiful country. So I'm in awe of, but also critical of, our food system.
Yep, you contain multitudes, Liv. Now, Zach, with psychedelics, people talk a lot about the importance of set and setting. When I was reading Blue Honey, though, because people were having to sort of, DIY with the mushrooms because of their legal status, people just seem to be experimenting, sometimes with friends, mostly at home alone. Can you talk to what that means, set and setting, and what you would like to say around those two words, what that means as a way to have a good experience? Yeah,
so it's interesting when I come across people who know about the book and know that I love mushrooms. If I hear them say, I took mushrooms once and I'll never ever have them again, 90% of the time I can say, you're at a party, a lot of people, you were drunk and you ate a handful of mushrooms not knowing what you were doing. And that's generally how it went, and they got slapped because they mixed it mixed the mushrooms with the alcohol. And when you're surrounded by a lot of other drunk party goers, it's a very difficult thing to try and process, especially if it's your first time. So that setting is horrendous. If anybody in the audience is at a party and you have been consuming alcohol and somebody gives you mushrooms, save them for a different day. Setting. So you need to feel comfortable in your space, because your space is going to change drastically. You need to have someone there that you trust wholeheartedly, just to sit with you or just to be with you. They don't have to be right next to you, but just so that you know that they're there. You don't want any distractions. You don't want your phone to ring. You don't want people coming in and messing with it, because it's such a... It can be so overwhelming that or the slightest distraction can snap you away from where you were going and the experience that you're having, that it can be quite difficult to get back to that place. And you just need to feel safe, because there's a big, how do I put it? You're experiencing such a new experience that you need to subconsciously in the back of your mind just know I'm in a good spot right now, to help with the ride. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So then, the setting that I mentioned earlier.
Oh, I don't know how you did that. I've never done anything like that.
Yeah,
That's just crazy.
that was a lot of experience, and I guess like for me, I grew up in the post 1990s Reagan era war on drugs America. And I remember my primary school had a bookmark design competition, which was a Just Say No to Drugs bookmark design. We had to do it every year, and one year I won. I was so proud. So that's where I began. And so I never really experimented with psychedelics at all until I was older and I had done some reading and research and understood set and setting. And so for me, like those early experiences were just like small groups and really safe kind of nature-y places that I was super familiar with. And that understanding of set and setting is absolutely essential. Yeah. Would not recommend the gig with 30,000 people unless you know what you're doing, which I did.
Even after the amount of trips that I have experienced, there's no chance I could sit through something like that.
So you know yourself. Yeah.
Now, I've read that cannabis can enhance your experience of food, and people talk about the cannabis munchies, so I've read. As I haven't taken psychedelic mushrooms, are mushrooms a food-enhancing drug? Like, does it enhance the experience of eating food?
No. So if I have a big dose, and I'm set in for the evening, first thing in the morning, I won't actually begin to feel hungry till about 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
Okay.
I'll feel full and nourished
By the mushrooms?
from the morning right through lunch, right through to the evening.
And I think that's an important distinction you make in some of the stories we're telling is the dose. So a lot of the stories I'm telling are smaller recreational doses, not hero trips.
Yeah.
Whereas you might be talking more about bigger doses, bigger full day experiences.
So there are, I suppose you could say, 5 different levels of dosaging with psilocybin, and yeah, it's hard. I can't give dosing advice because every mushroom has a different strength to it, therefore a different amount that you would take to achieve such level. You just have to do your research into that. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you had any issues around going public with what is essentially a Class A drug?
None yet.
Knock on wood for you. Yeah. But,
and this is alluding to what I said before. I don't think it's high in the law's agenda to crack down on.
That's good. Yeah.
We've had to have disclaimers in the book. Obviously, we did go to the film and television place. I can't remember who they were, to see if we could get the book approved, and they actually said it would be illegal to have this book because we're essentially promoting a Class A drug, and they said, no, you can't have this book out there, which is why we've got all the disclaimers through it, and the disclaimer is do not take psychedelic mushrooms.
Wow.
And that's how we got around it and got the book out.
That's how you got around it. So it's a wee self-published project, but it's had an incredible reception. You've been on TV. You've been on all kinds of podcasts. Do you want to talk to the reception of the book a little bit? Are you surprised by how well it's been received and how much people are wanting to talk about it?
Very taken back, very, very surprised, very humbled. We said to ourselves, if 50 people got a copy of our book, we would be blown away. And we didn't expect, I didn't expect to be standing in Parliament giving a speech about how Class A drugs are good for you. It's every step of the way.
Headlining at a literary festival.
Exactly. This is I was saying earlier, I feel like an imposter and that I shouldn't be here with such authors as yourselves. It's been a crazy experience.
Yeah. Well, I just really want to applaud your courage. I just think it's an amazing gift you've given everybody. Should we give Zach a round of applause for the courage
thank you.
it's taken? Now, I self-identify as a spiritual person and a very plant-spirit aligned person. And my book, I drift into that terrain a little bit. And in our conversations ahead of today, I kind of Zach was talking about how he's a wee bit nervous, and I said, well, just imagine that you're giving voice to the mushrooms, and I know that kind of worldview is a little bit beyond some people, more scientifically minded people, but can I just ask either of you if you sort of know what I'm getting at when I talk in that way, and if either of you felt like things like that were happening for you when you were creating your books? Were you giving voice to something that doesn't have a human voice?
We were giving voice to the people who are sick of being sick, sick of pill after pill after pill, and that there is an alternative out there that grows for free in the ground, which is probably illegal because Big Pharma can't make money off it.
Yeah.
And I suppose the mushrooms, you could say, told us that this is what we should do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. Thank you for indulging me. How about you, Liv?
Yeah, I think for me, and kind of speaking to those themes of wonder and awe, it was considering my relationship with these organisms and how relational it truly is, and how we often think of nature over there, us over here, big green wall, which I learned about from you. That's there and I'm here. And it was really exploring this idea that actually it's not separate at all, and that was not as familiar for me, having grown up in a very Western scientific context, was exploring this very, loving relationship I have with these incredible organisms. That's kind of a sterile word, but I feel like they're my mates. I love going for a little forage and checking out spots I visited before and seeing what they're up to and what's happening. So it's kind of just exploring my relationship with nature, and that it was more than just me over here, them over there. Yeah.
That really comes across in your book. I feel like your descriptions of the mushrooms often sound like you're introducing a friend.
Yeah, and I did an event on Wednesday with some schools from around Featherston, and I was really encouraging. I put some photos out on the tables, and then I had the kids describe what they were seeing back to me, and I had to guess what species they were looking at. And it was really fun to see them start off with very kind of smart academic answers of what they were seeing, and then get to a point where they were like, looks like lentils, looks like fun spaghetti. And I was like, okay, now we're getting to the good stuff, that
it's so delightful.
The personality of these things. Yeah.
Wow. Now we have to wrap up bang on 10:30 because of subsequent events, but before we thank Liv and Zach, the festival has asked me to thank you all for purchasing tickets today. There's a book signing table for these two beauties in the booksellers marquee outside the Anzac Hall, so do support them if you have the means. They'd love to meet you and talk to you about their books. If you would like a cup of tea or some buttery home-baked treats, head through the door to the supper room to the right of the stage. And there are QR codes posted within the venue and around town, so take time to scan them to keep up to date with everything happening at Featherston Booktown. And the team would love to hear your feedback so they can make it better every year. So do complete a survey if you have time. And with that, I just would like to give a warm Featherston thank you by means of applause to our wonderful guests today, Liv Sisson and Zach Cotogni. Thank you all so much for coming. It's lovely to see you here. Thank you all.